Welcome to our deep dive, everybody. Today we are going to be looking into personal transformation.
Such a fascinating topic.
Absolutely. And, it's something our listeners are clearly passionate about.
It really does seem to resonate, that desire for change.
Oh, definitely. And we got a ton of material from everyone on this one. Personal experiences, scientific research, expert advice.
The great mix.
Yeah, all centered around this theme of this year I will.
Love that.
So we're hoping that today we can help you kind of pull out the best strategies for actually, making those resolutions stick.
Make them last.
Exactly. So let's dive right in.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we all know desire, intent, and persistence are crucial when it comes to making any kind of change in our lives.
The building blocks, for sure.
But the material we got this time, it goes beyond just, listing those things,
Goes deeper.
right? It actually offers ways to strengthen these elements.
I like that.
For example, it emphasizes building new positive habits instead of focusing on, eliminating the negative ones.
So it's not about erasing who you are.
Exactly. It's more about kind of creating a new you rather than battling the old.
Very interesting.
Now, to do that effectively, we need to understand how our brains work.
Always key.
And specifically this concept of the three brains.
Yes. Break that down for us.
Well, it's so interesting because we often think of our brain as this single entity.
One thing.
Right, but in reality, it's more like three interconnected systems working together.
All linked.
Yeah, so you have the reptilian brain, which is that primal part focused on survival. Then there's the limbic system, which governs our emotions. And then the neocortex, which is responsible for all that thinking and reasoning.
Three very distinct systems.
So are we basically battling ourselves constantly then?
Not battling, but understanding.
Okay, how do we make these three brains cooperate?
We'll take the limbic system, for example. That's our emotional brain. And it thrives on rewards.
It wants the good stuff.
Exactly. So knowing that we can design systems that tap into that desire for positive reinforcement instead of just relying on willpower.
So no magic fairies granting wishes here.
Right, not
I love that example from one of the sources where someone was hoping for a quick fix to weight loss.
the instant transformation myth.
Right, it really debunked that idea that change can be effortless.
Effortless change is rare.
Yeah, real transformation demands action goals that are rooted in reality and a method to track our progress.
You need benchmarks.
And speaking of reality, the source material also emphasizes that we don't need to have, 100% unwavering enthusiasm to start making changes.
Which is a relief, I think.
Who actually feels that way all the time?
Right?
A little ambivalence is perfectly normal.
It's just human.
Yeah, even a slight lean towards change, say 51% commitment, that's enough to get going.
Enough to take that first step.
And that's really reassuring for anyone who feels intimidated by the enormity of change.
For sure.
It's okay to have those mixed feelings.
Absolutely. But on the flip side, the material doesn't shy away from the potential consequences of not changing either.
True, true.
Sometimes it's actually the pain of staying the same that really pushes us towards transformation.
That's a good point.
Like there was this very gripping anecdote about a parent who, in a heated moment, slams a dinner plate down in front of their child.
A real hitting bottom moment.
Yeah, a powerful illustration of how the cost of staying the same can sometimes outweigh the effort of change.
So it's like a wake-up call.
Exactly, and this leads to the idea that we should shift our focus.
Okay.
Instead of fixating on what we want to escape from, let's concentrate on what we're moving towards.
I remember that analogy of the bull rider who visualizes success and eventually becomes a champion.
Powerful imagery.
Our mindset really shapes our reality.
It truly does. So
Right.
training our brains to focus on that positive desired outcome is key. And this brings us to the gap between where we are now and where we want to be.
That space between.
Rather than letting it discourage us, we can view that gap as fuel for motivation.
Okay, I see.
Like Jake from one of the submissions, he was an executive who dreamed of becoming a marketing director but had no background in it.
A big gap to bridge.
He took action, sought out opportunities, believed in himself, and ultimately landed that dream job.
Wow, that's inspiring.
Shows that taking tangible steps coupled with that self-belief can really close that gap.
It also highlights the power of visualizing your future self, doesn't it?
It does, but at the same time, the source material cautions against overthinking.
Analysis paralysis.
We can get stuck in the why behind our actions, and sometimes that's not helpful.
So sometimes the best approach is to just act like the person we want to be.
Embody those qualities.
Which brings us to the importance of belief.
A cornerstone of success.
Believing in your own ability to change.
Absolutely fundamental.
And the material suggests a cool technique for this, identifying past achievements to bolster self-confidence.
Recognizing those islands of
I
competence,
like that.
those areas where you've already proven your
Yeah,
capabilities.
reminding yourself, hey, I've done this before, I can do it again.
Exactly. And of course, setbacks are part of the process.
They are inevitable.
So, how do we navigate them without losing momentum?
That's the key.
The source material introduces this framework called the 4 A's:
Okay.
awareness, acceptance, investigation, and non identification.
4 steps.
Exactly. A way to navigate those inevitable bumps without succumbing to self criticism.
Okay, so break it down for us.
So, first, awareness: you encounter a setback, you acknowledge it without judgment.
Just notice it.
Then, acceptance: you accept it as part of the process without condoning the behavior.
Okay?
Then, investigation: you explore with curiosity what led to it, what lessons can be learned.
Interesting.
And lastly, non identification: separating your sense of self from the setback. You are not your mistakes.
That's a powerful distinction.
This framework provides a structured approach to learning from those stumbles and moving forward.
I love it.
Now let's talk about habit change.
Getting practical.
The material really emphasizes the power of tiny steps.
Small, consistent actions.
They compound over time, leading to significant transformation, like think of Don from the submissions. He was a pack rat who successfully decluttered his room by committing to throwing away just 2 items each day.
Wow, that's incredible.
Seemingly insignificant actions, but accumulating into meaningful progress.
But then there's that contrasting perspective as well, right?
Oh, good.
Like with Steve Vaught at 410 pounds, he decided to walk across America to lose weight.
A dramatic goal.
It can be incredibly motivating. For some,
Yeah.
proving that there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Different strokes for different folks.
So how do we figure out what works for us individually?
The source material encourages reflection. How have you successfully learned things in the past? What elements contributed to your progress?
Like identifying your own personal formula for success.
Exactly. And coupled with that, it emphasizes a strong intention.
Okay.
Intention being that conscious choice for change guiding your actions and choices.
Setting that compass.
Precisely like setting a daily intention, a specific focus for each day that aligns with your overall "this year I will" goal.
Keeping your goals front and center.
And this leads us to the importance of SMART goals.
A classic for a reason.
Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
It eliminates vagueness and creates a clear path for success.
Exactly. Like, remember their example.
From the material.
Yes, about the difference between I want to be healthier versus I will exercise for 30 minutes 3 times a week for the next 3 months.
I'll remember that.
The first is admirable but lacks direction. The second provides a tangible roadmap.
It makes sense.
And when your goals are tied to your values and aspirations, their power amplifies.
It becomes personal.
Exactly. And having a time frame creates urgency, preventing procrastination.
You gotta have that deadline.
Indeed, if writing a book is your goal, set a deadline for that first draft, hold yourself accountable, ensure progress.
Speaking of getting started, I loved that anecdote from John Carroll about learning to waltz.
Oh, yes. Tell me about that.
He embraced the initial clumsiness, highlighting that discomfort is actually part of the learning process.
It's a sign of growth.
Absolutely. And it often brings a bit of humor, too.
Lightens the mood.
Now, what about the ever-present excuse of no time?
A classic.
The material emphasizes that time is a choice.
We all have the same 24 hours.
Right. It's about how we prioritize and allocate those hours.
If something's truly important, we make time for it.
So the key is examining those priorities and being willing to make adjustments.
Sometimes that means declining commitments or delegating tasks.
Absolutely. And for a fun approach, the material suggests asking yourself, what would role model do?
Oh, I like that.
Like channeling the qualities you admire in others.
Visualizing how they tackle a situation.
It's a way to tap into wisdom and inspiration, to overcome self-doubt, and step into a more empowered version of yourself.
Love it. But we also have to address those pesky excuses that tend to hold us back.
Oh, the excuses.
The source material identifies 2 main categories: self-blame and blaming circumstances.
Classic blame games.
It encourages us to honestly examine these excuses and develop proactive strategies.
Taking responsibility.
It's about recognizing that we have the power to change. Instead of dwelling on excuses, let's focus on solutions.
Identify the roadblocks and create a plan to navigate them.
That's the spirit.
Now, what about mental rehearsal?
A powerful tool.
The material explains that visualization creates neural pathways that actually make new behaviors feel more familiar.
Like practice in your mind.
Imagining yourself successfully performing an action makes it easier to do in reality,
It's like a mental dress rehearsal.
reducing anxiety-boosting confidence.
But it's not just visualizing the end goal.
There's more.
It's about visualizing the entire process, every step leading up to that goal.
So, for example, if your goal is to run a marathon, you visualize each run every step.
Lacing up your shoes, pushing through fatigue.
The more vivid and detailed the visualization, the more impactful it is.
Makes it real.
And ultimately, we have to move beyond visualization and actually take action.
That's where the rubber meets the road.
What insights does the source material offer about taking that leap?
It stresses that knowledge without action is futile.
Got to put those learnings into practice.
Reading or listening isn't enough. We have to take concrete steps.
Action creates momentum. The more we act, the easier it becomes to continue acting.
So don't wait for the perfect moment.
Start today, even with a small step.
Every action, no matter how small, moves us closer to our goals.
And on that note, I think this is a great place to pause for now.
Agreed. We've covered a lot of ground.
But there's so much more to explore.
I'm looking forward to diving deeper into the practicalities of change in our next segment. Ready for some more actionable strategies?
Absolutely. We left off talking about taking action, but I'm curious how we stay motivated when that initial excitement kind of fizzles out.
The source material acknowledges that our motivation naturally fluctuates. One strategy it suggests is setting realistic goals, because if they are too ambitious, we set ourselves up for discouragement and might just give up altogether.
Makes sense. We need to find that balance between challenge and achievability.
Right, finding that sweet spot. And another thing the material suggests is breaking down large goals into smaller, more manageable steps.
So it feels less overwhelming.
Exactly. And as you make progress with each small step, you get those little victories along the way.
And that can really boost your motivation.
Exactly. Those mini victories keep you going. And another thing the material highlights is the importance of having an accountability partner.
Someone to keep us on track.
Someone to offer support and encouragement when our motivation dips. And of course, we can't forget the importance of celebrating our successes.
Big and small.
Absolutely. Celebrating those wins helps solidify the positive behaviors and keeps us motivated. Now, speaking of reinforcement, let's circle back to that fascinating topic of our brains.
Three brains.
Right, and how understanding how they work can help us achieve lasting change.
So we were discussing the three brains concept. What additional insights does the source material offer about how to leverage these different systems?
Well, it emphasizes that while our neocortex sets the goal, it's the limbic system, our emotional brain, that actually drives our actions.
So we really need to engage our emotional brain for lasting change.
Exactly, and the source material suggests a few techniques for doing this. One is associating the new habit with something enjoyable.
So it feels good, not like a chore.
Exactly. If you can link the behavior to pleasure, your limbic system will be more likely to embrace it. Another approach is to create a sense of reward.
Like a small treat or a feeling of accomplishment.
Anything that truly motivates you. And of course, patience is crucial.
It takes time.
Yes, it takes time to rewire our brains. Habit change is a process, not an overnight event.
We need to be patient with ourselves.
Right. Don't get discouraged if you don't see immediate results. Consistency and persistence are key.
Keep at it.
And eventually, that new behavior will become more automatic. The source material also emphasizes the importance of self-belief.
Believing you can actually change.
That belief is absolutely fundamental to success. One strategy it recommends is identifying past successes to build your self-confidence.
Reminding yourself of those islands of competence.
Exactly, those areas where you've already proven you can achieve something.
It's a powerful reminder that we have the capacity for change within us.
Now, inevitably, we'll encounter some self-doubt along the way.
Especially when we're trying something new.
Or if we've experienced setbacks in the past. So how do we quiet that inner critic?
And keep moving forward.
Well, the source material suggests a technique called disputing, which is basically actively countering those negative thoughts with positive affirmations.
So instead of thinking, I'll never stick to this exercise routine,
You'd reframe it to something like, I am committed to moving my body regularly, and I believe I can make it happen.
I like that it's about replacing those self-defeating thoughts with more empowering beliefs.
Exactly, beliefs that support your goals. And it's important to remember that the goal isn't perfection, but progress.
We're always learning and growing.
Embrace those imperfections. They're signs that you're stretching yourself.
Now let's talk about the fear of failure.
Ah, yes, a big one.
It can be so paralyzing, it can stop us from even trying.
The source material suggests reframing failure as a learning experience.
instead of something to be afraid of.
Exactly, every setback is an opportunity for growth. Often we learn the most from our mistakes.
It's about being kind to ourselves when we stumble.
Absolutely. Don't berate yourself. Acknowledge the mistake, learn from it, and move on. Self-compassion is essential for maintaining motivation and resilience.
So true. Now let's revisit the power of visualization.
Such a valuable tool.
How can we use it to enhance our efforts towards habit change?
Well, the material explains that visualization helps create neural pathways that make new behaviors feel more familiar and easier to execute.
It's like we're practicing those actions in our mind.
Exactly. It reduces anxiety and boosts your confidence when it's time to actually do the thing in real life. And it's not just about visualizing the end goal.
It's about the entire process.
Yes, imagine each step required to reach that destination.
Yeah.
If your goal is to write a novel, picture yourself sitting down to write, battling writer's block, editing, revising, and finally holding that published book in your hands.
The more detail, the better.
Exactly. The more detail you add, the more real it becomes in your mind.
But eventually we have to move beyond visualization and actually take action.
Indeed.
What insights does the source material offer about bridging that gap between intention and execution?
Well, it stresses that knowledge without action is useless. You can read all the books, listen to all the podcasts, but if you don't apply what you learn, nothing will change.
We have to put those learnings into practice.
Take concrete steps towards the desired outcome. And importantly, action creates momentum. The more we act, the easier it becomes to keep going.
So don't wait for the perfect moment. Just start.
Start today, even with a small step. Every action, no matter how small, moves us closer to our goals.
I love that advice. So how do we keep that momentum going when the initial excitement inevitably wanes?
That's a great question. And the source material acknowledges that motivation naturally ebbs and flows. One strategy it suggests is setting realistic goals.
So we don't set ourselves up for failure.
Exactly. If our goals are too ambitious, we're more likely to get discouraged and give up. Another suggestion is breaking down those large, overwhelming goals into smaller, more manageable steps.
Making them less daunting.
Precisely. And it also highlights the benefit of having an accountability partner, someone who can offer support, encouragement, and help us stay on track when our motivation dips.
Having that external support can make a big difference.
It can, and of course, celebrating those successes along the way is crucial.
Big or small?
Absolutely. Celebrating helps reinforce those positive behaviors and helps us stay energized throughout the process.
Okay, I think this is a good place to pause for now.
Agreed, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We've explored a ton of great strategies for personal transformation, from understanding our brains to setting smart goals and even harnessing the power of visualization.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is, but change isn't always a smooth upward trajectory, right?
It really is.
There are bound to be bumps in the road. So what insights does the source material offer on navigating those inevitable challenges?
Well, it acknowledges that setbacks are a natural part of the process.
We're going to stumble from time to time.
We're human, and we're likely to experience slip-ups or moments of discouragement along the way.
So it's not about avoiding setbacks altogether.
Right. It's about having a plan for managing them.
So they don't completely derail our efforts.
Exactly. How do we pick ourselves up when we stumble and regain that forward momentum?
Okay, so what does the material suggest?
It introduces a really helpful tool called the 4 A's.
Try.
Acknowledge, accept, analyze, and act.
A structured approach to dealing with those setbacks.
Exactly, a way to learn from our mistakes and get back on track without beating ourselves up.
I like that. No self-recrimination.
Right,
Yeah.
so walk me through those steps.
Okay, let's hear it.
First, we acknowledge the setback without judgment.
It's just recognizing that it happened.
Exactly, don't try to brush it under the rug or pretend it didn't happen. Be honest with yourself.
Okay, honesty is key.
Then comes acceptance. And this doesn't mean we're condoning the behavior, but rather acknowledging it as part of the process.
We're human. We make mistakes.
Exactly, we're allowed to be imperfect.
Okay, so we acknowledge it, we accept it. What's next?
Then we move on to analyzing it, and this means exploring the situation with curiosity.
Not judgment.
Right? Ask yourself, what led to this? What can I learn from this experience?
Turning those setbacks into learning opportunities.
Precisely. And finally, we act.
Okay.
We develop a plan for getting back on track and preventing similar slip-ups in the future.
So it might involve adjusting our approach, seeking support, or simply recommitting to our goals with renewed determination.
Exactly. It's not about dwelling on the mistake, but using it as fuel for improvement.
And remembering that every day is a fresh start.
Absolutely. You can always choose to recommit to your goals and continue making progress.
Now, aside from dealing with those setbacks, I imagine maintaining motivation over the long haul can be a challenge.
It can.
So what strategies does the material suggest for staying engaged in our pursuit of change?
Well, it offers several practical tips. One is setting realistic goals, as we've discussed.
We don't want to set ourselves up for failure.
Right. It's about finding that balance between challenge and achievability. Another suggestion is breaking down those large, overwhelming goals into smaller, more manageable steps.
Making them less intimidating.
Exactly. And this allows us to experience those motivating mini victories along the way, which can really boost our enthusiasm.
Those small wins can be so powerful.
They really can. And the material also highlights the benefit of seeking support from others.
So like an accountability partner or support group.
Yes, or even just confiding in trusted friends or family members who can offer encouragement and help us stay accountable.
Having that external support system can make a big difference.
It can, and of course, celebrating those successes along the way is crucial.
Big or small.
Absolutely. Every achievement is worth acknowledging.
It's about recognizing our efforts and appreciating how far we've come.
Exactly. Now, beyond those practical strategies, the source material also delves into a fascinating concept, the power of our character strengths.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, it suggests that focusing solely on achieving a specific goal can be limiting. Okay. Instead, we should also recognize and appreciate the character strengths we cultivate throughout the process of change.
So it's not just about the destination, but about the person we become along the way.
Precisely, the material shares an inspiring story about a woman named Brenda Edson who decided to embark on a weight loss journey.
No.
While losing weight was her initial goal, what she discovered was that the real transformation was a personal growth she experienced along the way.
How so?
Well, she developed resilience, discipline, and self-compassion. These are qualities that extended far beyond her weight loss goal.
It's like those positive changes spilled over into other areas of her life.
Exactly, and it highlights the lasting impact of those character strengths we develop on this journey of change.
It's not just about changing our habits, it's about shaping our character.
Beautifully put, and here's another exciting insight from the source material. Once a new habit is established, those neural pathways remain for a lifetime.
Wow, that's encouraging.
It is. Even if we stumble or revert to old patterns at times, we have that foundation to build upon.
So it's not like starting from scratch.
Exactly. Those pathways are still there, making it easier to reestablish those positive habits if we stray from the path. It really speaks to the brain's incredible plasticity and our capacity for change.
That's a powerful reminder that change is possible.
It is, but it's also important to acknowledge that stress can be a major obstacle. When we're under stress, we're more vulnerable to falling back into old patterns.
Oh, that's so true. Like that anecdote about Peter Jennings, the news anchor, who after years of being smoke-free, started smoking again during a period of intense stress.
It's a stark reminder of how powerfully stress can influence our behaviors.
It also highlights the importance of having those stress management strategies in place.
Absolutely. And the material suggests a helpful tool for bouncing back after those more significant setbacks, what it calls the 4 A's for starting over.
Okay.
Acknowledge, accept, analyze, and act.
So the same framework we discussed for dealing with those smaller setbacks can be applied to those moments when we experience a bigger relapse.
Exactly. We start by acknowledging the relapse without judgment. Then we accept it as part of the process, a temporary detour, not a complete failure.
We're not defined by our setbacks.
Right. Then we analyze the situation, exploring what triggered the relapse and what we can learn from it. And finally, we develop a plan for getting back on track and mitigating future risks.
It's empowering to know that we always have the ability to start anew.
We do. Change is a journey with its twists and turns, but with the right mindset and the right tools, we can navigate those challenges and create the transformations we desire.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful.
It has.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to highlight?
I think what's most striking is how interconnected all these elements are.
It's not just about willpower.
No, it's about understanding ourselves, our brains, our motivations, and crafting strategies that truly work for us as individuals.
It's about recognizing that change is a process, not an event.
Exactly.
And for our listener who is on their own journey of personal transformation, what key takeaways would you offer?
Well, I'd offer this 10-point summary of the most potent strategies we've uncovered in our deep dive today.
Okay, let's hear it.
First, desire, intent, and persistence are the foundation of any successful change. Second, engaging our emotional brain is crucial for making that change last. Third, embracing ambivalence is okay. You don't have to be 100% gung-ho to begin. Fourth, focusing on what you're moving towards is more effective than dwelling on what you want to escape.
Okay, it says 4. What else?
Fifth, recognize and leverage that gap between where you are and where you want to be as a source of motivation. Sixth, don't get stuck in overthinking sometimes sections. Action is the best cure. Seventh, believe in your ability to change. Draw upon those past successes to fuel your confidence.
Okay, that's 7. What are the last 3?
Eighth, setbacks are inevitable, but they don't define you. Utilize those 4 A's to learn from your mistakes and keep moving forward. Ninth, small, consistent actions can lead to remarkable transformations. Celebrate every step of the way. And 10th, appreciate not only the achievement of your goal, but also the character strengths you cultivate throughout the process.
That's a fantastic summary.
It covers a lot of ground.
It does so much valuable information for our listeners to take away and apply to their own lives. And on that note, we encourage you to keep exploring these concepts, keep experimenting, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself. And as a final thought-provoking question, to ponder what one small step can you take today to bring your "this year I will" goal to life. Remember, change is possible one step at a time.